everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap-up. I really enjoyed the books that I read in June. I kind of felt myself going into a little bit of a reading slump after May, and like in the first week of June, I just wasn't in the mood to pick up anything, but then I decided to turn towards Nora Roberts, which is usually an author that I can just fly through her books. I love adult romance, you guys know that, and yeah, it just got me out of my book slump completely. So I ended up reading 5 books in June, 4 of which were Nora Roberts, as I mentioned, and the 5th one, I actually ended up rereading it a second time all the way through when I finished it. So I guess you could kind of say I read 6 books because I did reread a book completely through a second time, and then also I did skim another book that I had read in May, so I guess technically I read like 6.5 books, but really I read 5 books. So the first 4 books I read were the books in the Chesapeake Bay saga by Nora Roberts. For some reason I only have book 1, Sea Swept, and book 4, Chesapeake Blue, but I was able to read book 2, Rising Tides, and book 3, Inner Harbor, from my public library. I absolutely love this series. It is one of my all-time favorite series. Chesapeake Blue is one of my all-time favorite books. I reread it at least once a year, I want to say. I like look back on Goodreads and I reread it, I believe, once a year. And Sea Swept I read probably once a year, once every other year. Usually after I'm done reading Chesapeake Blue, I get the itch to read Sea Swept, because Chesapeake Blue is my favorite in the series, but Sea Swept definitely comes at a close second. As far as the other 2 books, usually Rising Tides, which is book 2, it's usually my 3rd favorite in this series, but for some reason this time, after rereading it, I ended up enjoying Inner Harbor a lot more than I usually do, and I think it's just because I was able to appreciate how much more we get into like the meat and the heart of the story. So in this story, we're following 4 adoptive brothers. 3 of them, Cameron, Ethan, and Philip, are in their late 20s, and Seth is 10 or 11 years old. And it's basically the story of Cameron, Ethan, and Philip having to take care of Seth and bring him into their family and basically bond and take care of him and make him a brother as well. I love this story so much. I love the message. Yes, of course there is adult romance, but there's so much more to this series than just like the smut, and I can really appreciate that. The next book I want to talk about is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I adored this book. I recently did my mid-year book freakout tag, and the first question was, what is your favorite book so far of 2019? It's this one, Red, White, and Royal Blue. I freaking loved it so much. Like, after I read it, as I was reading it the first time, I would go back and reread scenes, and then once I was done rereading it, I picked it back up and read it a second time, just because I loved it so much. It is a male-male romance, and we're following Alex, who is the president's son, and Henry, who is the Prince of England. It's so good. I loved it. Keep in mind, it is adult romance, so there is a little bit of steamy scenes, language, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, keep that in mind. The cover is super cute, so you don't necessarily think it's adult romance. Like, typically, you know, like you can see like this is an adult book. This kind of, it's cutesy, and so at first I thought it was like a YA contemporary, but it's definitely not. I adore this cover, and it kind of threw me off just because it's not like most adult romance covers, but it's really cute. I really enjoyed it. But the relationship between Alex and Henry is just so damn cute. I also love the relationship between Alex and his sister, and it's just all in all, it was phenomenal, and I will definitely be rereading it again. I'm sure this is not the first time you have seen this book on YouTube. It's been kind of blowing up recently. A lot of people have been reading it, and that's kind of what got me to read it. Hannah started reading it, and she recommended it to me, and I'm so glad that she did because I loved it so much. And the last book that I just kind of reread a little bit, I just kind of skimmed back through it, was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I read this book back at the beginning of May, and our live show was actually today, which is the end of June. So I just kind of wanted to refresh myself and go back through and just kind of skim it and reread it a little bit, just to have some talking points and have the book fresh in my mind and just to do it justice for the live show, basically. And I enjoyed it a lot. Like, I enjoyed it the first time. I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars, and I think after kind of rereading it a second time and after I discussed it with Hannah, I think I'm gonna up my rating to like a 3.5 to a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I do think that it was a good, like, solid book, a great debut novel, and Hannah and I mentioned this in our live show, but it's definitely geared towards a specific audience, especially YouTubers who love Christine's videos. So if you are a YouTuber or booktuber, I guess, or you watch booktube, you love Christine, you love her videos, you want to support her, you read a lot of YA, then I think you would really enjoy this book. It's definitely geared towards that audience, and you really see Christine in the book. It was fun, and the plot was fun, and there were interesting twists that I wasn't expecting, and yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it if you fall into that specific audience that I was talking about. So I think I may just kind of throw in some of the books that I plan on reading in July as well. I don't have a huge TBR with me. There's only one book that I really have to read, which is our Muggle Studies book club pick. And then I have a couple of other books that I may pick up or I may not pick up. I haven't decided yet, but the first book that I definitely will be picking up is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is our Muggle Studies book club pick, and we have 5 months ahead of us of Leigh Bardugo, or the Grisha verse. So we're reading the trilogy, and then we are going to be reading the Six of Crows duology. So we're starting in July with Shadow and Bone. So I have mixed feelings about going into this book. I've heard people rave about this series, but I've also heard people think that it was kind of boring. So I don't know. Fantasy has been kind of tough lately for me. So I'm interested to read this book. At first I thought it was going to be a dystopian, but then I was told that it's not, and I am so happy because I'm just so over dystopian right now. But I've heard nothing but amazing things with the Six of Crows duology, and more than likely I will end up listening to this one on audiobook. Another book that I'm thinking of picking up is another Nora Roberts book, and that is Northern Lights. I had already started reading this, and for some reason I ended up putting it down, which is really unlike me to put down a Nora Roberts book. I typically just fly through them, but I'm currently on page 200. This is one of her chunkier books, but I adore this story. I read it, I want to say like 10 years ago or something like that, and I really, really loved it, and I adore the Lifetime movie that they made. So a few months ago I had decided to reread it, and I never finished it. So now that I am in kind of that adult romance Nora Roberts mood, I feel like I should just go ahead and finish it. The next book that I kind of want to read in July is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. A couple of YouTubers that I trust their judgment on, they have rated it like 5 out of 5 stars. So I kind of want to give it a shot and read it. I do need to go buy it. I thought maybe I could get it from my public library, but it looks like a lot of people are reading this book. It's telling me it's about 24 weeks for availability. So I think I'm just gonna go purchase it and give it a shot. I believe it's adult romance, so I want to read more cutesy adult romance, like Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I want to give The Unhoneymooners a shot and then maybe venture around there as well and just read more adult romance, because honestly I just kind of stick to Nora Roberts, which is great. I love Nora Roberts and I want to expand my collection on her, but I feel like I need to broaden my scope of adult romance authors, and after reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, yeah, I definitely want to read more. Alright, well that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below and let me know some of the books that you read in June and some of the books that you want to read in July. And I will see you next time with another video. Bye!